I told them where my church is and said to them, the first thing you want to do when you get out of prison is find a Bible-believing church with good Christians. You need a church that has the Bible as the Word of God. It's got to be its foundation.
This is Convicted, a podcast sharing stories of hope from inside. Join David Binder every fortnight as he interviews ex-offenders, chaplains and volunteers about the amazing things God is doing in UK prisons right now.
My guest today is Jason Armstrong. Jason, thanks so much for agreeing to talk to me. It's great to see you again, and great to talk. Jason, I wonder whether you can just start just by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Jason Armstrong. I'm a Christian. I wasn't a Christian at the start of my life. I became a Christian when I was 45. Been to prison a few times. Growing up, I was in a very violent household. My dad was an armed robber, his brothers were all violent. My mum used to get beaten up by my dad sometimes, hit by my dad. So did we. I was in and out of women's refuges quite a few times when I was younger. It was just turmoil, no peace, It was just always feeding scared. And because we was poor as well, I always remember I used to get bullied at school. And when I was around 6 years old, something in me snapped because being scared at home was one thing, but in being scared of people at school who bullied me, something just snapped in me one day, and I beat up about 10 kids in one day, and they thought there was something wrong with me, and I started having psychotherapy at school. I'd see someone once a week, look at pictures, tell them what I thought the pictures were, and stuff like that. I only remember that vaguely. And the fighting carried on until I was 9, and at 9 I got put in a psychiatric home for intense psychotherapy, which was pretty horrendous. First of all, I just remember thinking, what am I doing here? My first day there, they put on a disco for you, and one of the other kids, I remember he was 14, he was really tall. Just before my 9th birthday, I was in this place, and he started trying to bully me, and I'd done him with a custard bowl in the face. He went down, I jumped on top of him and continued to smash him in the face with a custard bowl. That was my first day, and I was locked in a room. And growing up was just violent. Chaos and violence was the norm, and drink and drugs as well.
Go on from there then. So that was kind of your early life. You said 9 years old. Just tell us I suppose, how life developed for you as you were kind of going into your teenage years.
First of all, when I come out of the home, people were asking where I'd been, and obviously I didn't want to talk about it because of the abuse that happened in there as well. So I come out there worse than I went in, so it certainly didn't help me. I was actually even more violent. I realised I was good at it. I was good at fighting because I was the youngest in there. So I was fighting 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. That's a lot of difference when you're 9 years old. And I was winning. So I was just good at fighting, and I used to enjoy it. And it only come to me recently because there were some fights I'd have and I would make them last longer. For the first reason was really because I felt at the least pain when I was being punched in the face. So, because of my childhood and everything else that happened in my life, the moments I felt the least pain was when I was being punched in the face. So sometimes when I could finish a fight quickly, I'd let it carry on and fight at 60% of what I was capable of. Just to get punched in the face, I suppose. For some perverse reason, I kind of enjoyed it. I was always scared leading up to a fight, but once it started, I loved it. I loved the combat, and the harder the fight, the more I liked it. The more I got hurt, or the more I hurt someone else, the more I liked it, in a perverse kind of way. And that's really twisted, I know, but like I said earlier, when chaos and violence is the norm, you're capable of anything. And it's quite a scary thing looking back now. There was a group of 5 of us, 3 of my mates are dead, heroin. One's in prison, he's still in prison now, he's done 32 years altogether, still serving. I lost my little brother as well. He caused me murders as well in prison, he did. It was just carried on like that, and then it went from school to pubs, and then I started drinking in pubs and clubs. And so then you're fighting a different league then, because you're fighting men. And I was fighting men from sort of the age of 14, 15. I was drinking in pubs from that age. And again, I was still winning fights. I do remember there's a pub called the St Helier Arms, and if you look it up on Google, it says they call it the most dangerous pub in Britain. Been a few murders there, loads of stabbings and things like that. And I went up there once when I was 16, and I offered all the people out in there for money for some mad reason. I'd had a few beers, and I thought, yeah, let's have it. And loads of them jumped me, and they done me, but they was mob-handed, smashing me head on the curb and everything. I've done a few, but it was like, you're talking like 15, 20 blokes, maybe more. This was my first fight up there, and I remember just grabbing on one of their legs and biting his leg, and I wouldn't let go, so at least I could hurt one of them. I didn't care about what they did to me. There was a lot of them. I'd focus on one person, just trying to hurt him as bad as possible. Anyway, so that happened. It went outside the pub. I started having a straight up with one of them, and I was winning. So everyone jumped in, and that's when they started smashing me head on the curb and all this stuff. And then a week went by. The bruises had gone down a bit and the bumps on my head, and I went back up there the following Friday and said, right, let's have it again. The same thing happened again. I got beat, but they was mob-handed again. But this time I'd done a little bit better because not as many of them were there as before. Yeah. So instead of fighting 15 to 20, I was fighting sort of 8 to 10 of the ones who wanted to have it. And then I lost again, but I went up there the third week. I was 16 at the time. I said, right, let's have it again. I'd healed a bit again. I was ready to go again, and because I wanted to do them all. And they just said, look, can we just buy you a drink? Like, we don't want to fight you no more. Yeah. Like, we've had enough of this. Like, I thought this guy's a lunatic, which I was at the time, because I didn't care. I didn't care if I lived or died. For me, I just wanted the notoriety. I just wanted to get them all back. And, you know, I said, yeah, you can buy me a drink. And so they started buying me drinks, and it sort of sorted itself out. But I did have a couple of fights with a couple of them later on, straighteners, which I beat them. But yeah, that's how my life went right until my 20s. And then I got my first bit of bird. I was away with my mate Dave, who's dead now, God bless him. Yeah, I was in a pub. So I was about 21, I think. And pub landlord refused to serve me anymore. Knocked him out, basically. And then when he got up, because a few people grabbed hold of him and went, that's out, blah, 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 blah. As he was getting up, I picked up a glass, and he got up and I threw the glass at him, but he ducked lucky enough and it missed him. Otherwise I'd got even worse trouble. And I got 6 months for that, for ABH. Went away, I was away with my mate Dave. Just before I'd gone to the prison, there was us younger lot and there's the older lot. Because there's a lot of well-known people around my area, dangerous people as well. And one of them in particular we was having trouble with before I'd come away and Dave had come away. And I'd met this particular person in the pub. The real older lot was my dad's mates, who were proper old, like, time lunatics, and then sort of the middle ones around 30s, and then us young ones in low 20s. And one of the ones in the 30s was slagging off my mate Dave, who was in prison at the time, and I was at the table just because I knew my dad's lot and that. And he was a massive bloke, he was like 6'5", 25 stone. I was about 15 stone then, 6 foot. But I wasn't scared of him. But he was an horrible bully, you know. And he started slagging off Dave. And I said, listen, don't slag off my mate. I said, if you want to fight him, fight him. I said, he'll have it with you any day. He went, I'll smash him to pieces and all this. He's going. I said, I'll tell him then. Anyway, he got up to have it with me. I stood up as well. And because my dad's mates were there as well, they went, oi, sit down, behave yourself. That's Brian's son, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that stopped that. But I ended up in prison. I got 6 months, but I ended up in Highdown. I ended up in the same cell as Dave because I see him on the exercise yard, and I shouted out the window, and he looked at me, and went, "Jason, is that you?" I went, "Yeah." He goes, "I'll see if I can get round you," because Highdown had not long been open then. I think not even a year. Fairly new prison, so there's plenty of drugs about at the time because a prison takes a while to get its security sorted. You end up in there with him. He come back from a visit one day, going mad, saying about his brother. That Terry, same bloke, would put it on his brother, and he's going to do him when he gets out. So Dave got out about 3 days before I did. So I come out on the Friday, and he'd come out on the Tuesday on the same week, funny enough. And I see him up the circle, which is where the Arms was. I was getting a kebab for me and the ex-missus and some food, because I had my daughter Kelly and that there, and her son Daniel. And he said, "You coming out for a beer?" And I said, "I can't, Dave." I said, "I've just come out today, so I've got to spend some time with the family." He went, "Yeah, no, I understand." He goes, I'm just waiting over there for that mug. If he turns up, I'm going to have it with him." I said, "Oh, yeah." He went, "Yeah." I said, "Well, be careful." He goes, "No, I don't don't worry about it. Dave was only 5'7", but yeah, he was a dangerous little git. Half hour to an hour later, I heard sirens everywhere. I know what's happened there. So he rang me up, told me what happened. He had a straighten with him. Terry pulled up with his geezer Malcolm. See Dave, said, "Oh, you little mug, blah, 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 blah." They started having a straightener. Dave was holding his own with him, but they was both getting a bit tired. And then that Terry sort of went in the pub, had a drink, a few lines of Charlie, and Dave said, "I knew he was going to come back out and start again." So he went home and got a little blade. So when he came back out, started having a straightener again, and he thought, "Sod this," he's pulled out a knife. So Terry ran, and he stabbed him in the back, and he lost a kidney. And it escalated from there. I was at a christening, which is really weird looking back. And while I was at the christening, Dave and James were trying to get hold of me. They wanted to go and shoot him and cut his throat. They'd ringing me at home and they was trying to get hold of me, went round my house to knock for me. Obviously I weren't there, I was in the church, funny enough. Didn't believe in God or nothing. I was just there because for us, there was no belief in God at christening. It was just getting your kid christened and then there's a party afterwards. So it's more for the party than the church bit, if I'm honest. So they couldn't get hold of me. That evening, they went round, shot him with a shotgun in the side of the face because it was in the summertime. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and then cut his face from there right across his neck, properly cut his throat. But they'd found out before they'd done it where I was, but it's too late. They'd set all the plans in place. Everything was sorted then. So, but what they did do, they rang me and asked me to go and see if he was dead straight after they'd done it. They rang the pub, but they found out after they'd done it, they'd rung me from the station because they went up north for a little bit to get away. And they rang me and said, "Look, can you go and see if he's dead? I'm going to ring you back at 9 o'clock. And I said, "What have you done?" He goes, "We shot him and cut his throat." I went, "Right, I'll go and have a look." So someone quickly rang me up there because it was only literally from here to your house, the arms to the sun. They rang me up there and he was on the stretcher. It was all taped off, but you could see him. See he was on the stretcher. They were still working on him. And I stayed there and watched for about 10 minutes. He was still alive, but he looked a mess. You know, that's what I see. I mean, he was about from here to them double doors away from me, so it's quite hard to see any real detail. So I got driven back to the pub, and they ran back up at the allotted time. They said, "Is he dead?" I said, "No." I said, "He's still alive." They went, "You're effing joking. He's got to be dead." He said, "We've done him proper." I said, "Well, he ain't." And they were really gutted. And I was gutted as well, because I wanted to be there with them when they'd done it, because they was my pals, you know. But on reflection, I believe God kept me away from that situation. You know, Dave died at 33, and I think James was 29. Paul, Dave's brother, died, he was 21. So, you know, when you live in that life, there's no good comes of it, you know. Like I said, Paul's still in prison serving, he's done 32 years. There's me, I've done a 6 month. After that 6 month and after the shooting incident, I had another fight with someone. I stabbed someone, cut his face and stabbed him in the neck 3 times. Nearly killed him, missed his jugular by 3mm. I got 5.5 years for that.
Let's shift now to kind of life inside. What was life like for you?
In Highdown the first time, it was pretty easy really, because the regime was pretty lax, because they were finding their feet. Like I said, it was a pretty new prison in Highdown. It's literally been open months. Because I was with Dave as well, and drugs were aplenty. We were just puffing in cells of a night, having a good laugh and a crack, and I had no trouble at all in the 6 month stint. And then I got another stint just before I was 26. I got 5.5 years for GBH with intent. That sentence was a bit different. So I had a few pals in there from my dad, because it was local, a few faces who were well known. And I remember one visit, he's dead now, Dave anyway, so I can say his name, but Dave Ericks, he come back from a visit and he had come back 40 pills, you know, ecstasy pills, and about 10 grams of cocaine. My cell was up on the freeze, top landing, you know, the screws don't go up on that landing much really. Everyone was in my cell. I was in a single cell up there then. Prison population ain't like it was today. This is back in the 90s, so you get single cells and that. Yeah, we had a party night that night, and there was a few naughty people from our manor in there. There was a few people I didn't know, but others knew. And we had a great night, all of us, in the cells. Then it was bang up, and then you could hear all the radios going. We're all peeled up and charlied up in our cells. But the next day was a really sunny, hot day on the exercise yard, and we was all sitting out in the exercise yard. I remember it. And it was a really hot day and everyone was really down on a downer because on the come down from the night before. And we was all sitting in a circle, there's about 12 of us. Someone had the bright idea, said, "F it," he said, let's not go in a jog on. We'll just stay here, stand firm. So whoever goes in's going to get it. And everyone went, "Yes, F them, we'll do it. Let's stay here." So we was all sitting in this circle in a yard. And they came and said, come in the yard, F off, we ain't going nowhere. everyone's going stand firm. Then the buzzer's gone, so loads of screws are coming from everywhere. Now you've got about 20 screws around us going, come on, get him. We're going F off. Right, and we're going stand firm, we'll have it with them, we'll take them. Then the dogs come out, and even then more screws. You see everyone's faces, really, did we really want to go and have it with them with the dogs and everything else? And I remember, like, everyone was too scared to be the one to say, sod this. But there was a geezer I didn't know, one of the ones I didn't know. Got up and went, sod this, I ain't doing this, and got up, went in, and everyone else got up and walked out, like, and it just diffused the situation immediately. But at 1 minute, it was like paper thin close to kicking off, and if it had gone off, there was some faces there, it would have been a naughty fight, even though there was more of them. People would have got hurt. That was one of the memories. Another one was when I was over in Downview, when it was a man's prison, and there was a geezer called Jock, and that's what we called him anyway, and he was in the cell next to me, and someone told me that he'd been saying to people, I think he lost the plot for some reason, I don't know why, and I used to look after him because he knew a few people I knew, although I didn't know him. So I dealt with him out phone cards and things like that. Someone told me, you better watch Jock, he's out to get you. I'm like, what? So I went in there and pulled him. I said, Jock, what's this? I said, I've heard you want it with me, I was saying like that. He said, you've been calling me a nonce and all this. He said, and he showed me this book about a nonce. He said, you put that under my door. And I'm like, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I never called you a nonce. I said, if I thought you were a nonce, I'd tell you I thought you was a nonce. Anyway, blah, 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 that happened. Everyone knew about it. Went to work that afternoon, bombed, the buzzer's gone, big shutdown. They found him with his throat cut in his cell. Obviously, they pulled me in for it. The only reason I didn't get nicked for it is because he said that 2 other people were with me. I went in his cell, apparently, cut his throat with these 2 older blokes, both of them whom one was 73 and one was 76. I asked him how he was when I was being questioned, and they said he's touch and go. I thought, God, mate, I could be in here for another 20 years, you know what I mean? So that was a bit of a tough bit of the time in prison. I had a couple of little altercations with people. You know, if you want to fight in prison all day long, you can. If anyone put it on me, I'd take care of business. To be honest with you, it's staying in there is a mug's game. I mean, if you want to fight in prison, you can have a fight every day if you want. There's plenty of people who want to fight you in prison. But for me, I just used to use it for reading, going to the gym, getting myself fit and healthy again, and mainly sort of went that path. And I'm quite easy, and I was around people I've got on right with. Like I said, I had a few problems, but they were sorted. Other than that, prison life was just tough in the sense that Lorna was waiting for me on the outside, coming up to visit me all the time. It's hard work for women coming to visit prisons and things, you know, taking all their shoes and everything off and being searched everywhere, and, you know, it's a bit dehumanising, isn't it? And she's a good girl. She's never been in trouble with the police in her life. She's got good morals. She's a good person. So God definitely put her in my life, because the other relationship I had was toxic, which led to a lot of rows and things, you know, which just fuelled the anger.
Just talk to me then, Jason, about God, I suppose, because a lot of people, at least, become Christians in prison. Just wondering, was that the case for you?
So no, never got saved in prison. I got saved in April 2015. I lost my brother. I'd already lost some good pals. The firm was hard work. I had 40 employees at the time. I'd always took drink and drug, but then my little brother died.
Sorry, Jason, so this is obviously outside.
This is after that 5.5 year sentence.
Yeah, 5.5 years.
Yeah, so I'm now in my early 40s.
Yeah.
We've jumped forward to 30s. I mean, it's all fighting still. You know, same old.
Yeah.
Not quite as bad, but still plenty going on.
Yeah.
And I got stabbed at that time as well, in February 2000. Got stabbed in my right arm, went right through my arm to the other side. But I've been stabbed in the back as well when I was 16, but I've stabbed people as well, so live by the sword, die by the sword, it's part of the game. But going back to that, how I come to God was, so I lost my brother Kevin in 2008, and then my mum in 2010. Like I said, some good pals previously before, but them two done me. I remember the day of that brother's funeral, I had a massive fight in a pub called the Red Lion in Cheam. I was in there, the funeral, the wake, drunk, charlied up, all having a good time, and then there was some geezer in there, and I said something to him, only something about, trying to be funny. But he took it the wrong way, and he thought So he went back and come back with some mates. I'd come back about six-handed. And he said to me, "What'd you say, mate?" I said, "The same earlier." Give him a right hook and it was off. And my mate Mark jumped in, who can have a tear up and all. And we'd done all 6 of them within 2-3 minutes. One of them was thrown in a fire. A few of my dad's pals were in there as well. So time the police come, we'd done the off. My old man's mate said to the people and the landlord and that, "Don't tell them a word who it was. You do nothing." I told them to keep stum, which they did. And got away with that. Loved it at the time, I must admit. I thought it was great. That's just what I needed. You know, fighting was always the answer to everything, which is not true. Yeah. But yeah, then so we jumped forward to my 40s. My brother died, my mum. I now said to my mum, just before she died, I said that the hospice has been really good, St Raph's up the road there. I said, "Do you want me to raise some money for them?" She went, "Yeah, that'd be nice if you do that." I said, like, what should I do? London Marathon? Or such? She went, "Oh, the London Marathon, that'd be great." And I regretted saying that straight away because that's the one she chose. So I ended up doing the London Marathon in 2011. So I didn't grieve really my mum's death because I was training for the marathon for a whole year. The most I ran was 12 miles because I kept getting shin splints, blisters during the training. So on the day, I was thinking, "Can I do this?" You know, 26.5 miles is a long way when you're only trained for 12 because you kept getting injured. But anyway, I was injury free. I hadn't trained for 3 weeks before. The blisters had gone that I had. Got to, and I bandaged up my feet and stuff. Done about 6 mile, had to stop, take the bandages off because they were killing me. Covered in blisters around the 30.5 mile mark, which I'd done that in 2.5 hours, which was pretty good. And then I fell, twisted my knee, so the rest of it was a struggle. But I finished it. It's over 7 hours. So I remember coming down to the last mile, right? Because there was these 2 fellas and they had an aluminium frame with a curtain of a red bus. And I thought, as long as I stay in front of them 2, I'll be happy. And then at 25.5 miles, they went past me, and I was absolutely devastated. Yeah. And you know when they say you hit a wall?
Yeah.
For me, that was my wall.
Yeah.
And then my older brother Lee, my missus, come over and put my arms around their shoulders, and they sort of helped me with the last sort of half mile, get to the line. So I finished it and done it. But I got home that night, and I'd already rung up in the cab on the way home. And had a parcel dropped under my garage door. So there was an alley that leads to... I had a bar at the bottom of my garden, and then there's a garage at the back of that. So I used to get the parcels dropped under, so Lorna would never know what was going on down there. She knew I'd take the gear, but not how much. No one could see it being delivered, you know what I mean?
Just to be clear, parcels...
Cocaine, yeah. So big rocks of cocaine, 200-300 quid's worth at the time. And yeah, so I'd just done 26.5 miles, so I'm sure it couldn't have been good for me heart. And I had a 300 lump of Rocker Charlie, which I chopped up, and I stayed up till about 2:30, 3 in the morning, snorting and drinking after running the London Marathon. I went to get up off the bar stool that I've been sitting on for the last few hours. My legs had just seized up. It must have took me 20 minutes to walk up the garden. I was so stiff. And I couldn't get up the stairs because my legs had gone. I was completely seized up, and I was on the settee for 3 days before I could move again. Work or nothing. Anyway, but the main thing is I finished it. I earned what my mum done. You know, if I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. But then the grief hit me, and the usage of drugs just become a lot more. Friday and Saturday thing become a Monday, a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. At least I would say the minimum was 4 days a week, sometimes 6, and even sometimes 7. That I would have cocaine and drink. It got out of control. This went on for around 4 years, I think. During that time, I started trying to contact the dead because I'd heard all these stories about contacting the dead and everything else, and all these things about ghosts and people seeing their mums and this, that and the other. And I just thought, what a load of crap, because I hadn't seen nothing ever. And I used to watch all these like poltergeist programmes, you know, when they go ghost hunting and all that. I wouldn't advise it. But I was doing all these things, but I didn't realise at the time it opens doors. And some really strange things started happening. When we were going, I had a toilet in the back of the bar, and I went out, opened the door, went out, and I see this black, like, wispy figure go under the garage door and away, and I looked, and I thought, that's got to be the drugs. Then I had this sense of evil around, and there was these funny noises, just horrible smells, just seeing things out the corner of my eye, you know. Then funny things were happening indoors, and it was slowly getting worse and worse. And then it come to a head. Lorna went away for a hen weekend. Bo went over to Kelly's, my oldest daughter's, for the weekend. So I thought, right, I'll get on it, which I did on the Friday night and part of the Saturday, and then went to bed Saturday night, woke up Sunday early hours of the morning, and it was pitch black in the house, and I thought I could see figures in that, and I thought, oh, she must be dreaming or something, and I went back to sleep. Then I woke up about 6:30 in the morning, something like that, and it was light because it was summertime. Well, it was April, so springtime, and it was quite a nice sunny day actually. I remember thinking, I could hear some voices, and I thought, what's that going on? And then I felt all this scratching on my legs and my chest and all that. I looked down and I pulled the sheet off me, and there was all claw marks everywhere, all down my legs, all around my chest, like little claw marks and big claw marks. It was mental. So I pulled the cover over my head, the sheet. I had like a sheet thing because it was quite hot that day, and I pulled it over my head. But it's one of them ones you could just about see through, because I pulled it over my head thinking, I'm losing the plot here, what's going on? Like, and I'm thinking to myself, and I opened my eyes again while I had this sheet open. I could see all these black figures about. I pulled the sheet down and nothing was there again. And then I could hear all these voices downstairs. So I went downstairs and it stopped. But the light in the front room was swinging backwards and forwards. And the dog was by the back door, absolutely terrified. So I let him out to go away. Then he wouldn't come back in the house. I was thinking, what's going on? Then I could hear the voices upstairs. Went back upstairs, ran upstairs, nothing. I went back downstairs. Every cupboard in the kitchen was open, the doors. I'm thinking, what the bloody hell's going on? I thought I was losing the plot. And it was like that all day. And then there was these bangs and crashes and this, that and the other. All going on all day. And then my daughter texted me at 3 saying that I'll be home at 5 with Bo. And I thought, what am I going to do? I must have lost the plot. Because I still didn't believe this could be true. I thought it must be me going mad. So anyway, I didn't know what to do, so I called out to God. So I prayed, not really believing it, but it stopped. All of a sudden, the last thing that happened was just this loud crash. It was like someone who was about 50 stone had jumped off my bed with both feet and onto the floor. That's what it sounded like. And it made me jump up in the air. And then everything stopped and was dead quiet. But inside I was a complete and utter mess. What is going on? And I'm waiting for Bo to come back now, and then in my head I'm just thinking, trying to sort of make sense of all what's just happened, you know? And then Kelly dropped by, she said, you all right? I said, yeah, I'm fine, like trying to act fine, but I weren't. I was still scared, I was freaked out by it all. I wasn't sure if I was going mad or if that was real. Got to about 9 o'clock at night. I said, come on, Bo, go to bed. She goes, can I get in bed with you, Dad? I said, of course you can. She was only 7 at the time. So she got in bed with me. And I'm laying there looking at the wall sideways, and she's laying next to me in the middle of the bed facing the other way. And all of a sudden she goes, what do you call me that for, Dad? And I said, what? She went, I'm not allowed to say that word. I said, well, spell it. And she went, B-I-T-C-H. And instantly I thought, it must be true then. It must be real. I thought, what have I done? I've put my family in danger, you know. I just felt the weight of it. So I remember turning on the telly, and I was flicking through trying to find something that's godly, and I come across Revelation TV. A guy called Howard who owns it. I ended up watching that. Still to this day I watch Revelation. It's a great station actually. Very gospel, most of their stuff. So I left that on thinking that's going to sort of help me in some weird way, because they were talking about God. I was laying awake most of the night. I ended up going to sleep, woke up, Lorna was there, and I told her in the afternoon what had happened. And she thought, then she wanted to just get home, she thought I'd lost the plot. And she knew her daughter was coming back to me in this state. So obviously she was worried. And she got home about 5:30 in the morning from the hen weekend in Spain. And we spoke in the morning, and she said, what happened? I told her. I said, I'm telling you. And I showed her the claw marks, and she was like, doing myself. And I said, look, I couldn't do myself. Look, they're smaller than don't match up to my fingers. And so I said, I'm going to have to go to church. Going to church. The only church I knew was this one, because we got married here. Only because she wanted to get married in the church, because she had some belief, although she weren't a Christian. And we were also both baptised here. For me, it was the party thing again, like I said earlier, you know. But for Lorna, it was for, she meant it with God. Although she wasn't a real practising, proper Christian at the time, there was belief there. So I said, I'm going to the church. So I got in the motor, and halfway up the road, I remember thinking to myself, sorry, I must have just lost the plot. I'm just going to go to work. But by the time I got to the top of the road, left was going to work, right was coming here to the church. And the next thing I know, I pulled up in the vicar's drive, right? And then I'm knocking on his door, and I'm sort of come to. I don't remember getting from there to here, but I was here now, and I rung the doorbell. It just so happened that Claire had gone out for the day. So David was there alone, and he said he was a bit taken aback seeing this big, 17-stone skinhead, 6 foot at his door. And I looked troubled. Do you know what I mean? So when someone looks troubled, that can be a bit frightening. Yeah. And I remember he was a bit taken aback, and then I started talking to him, and I broke down as well as I was talking to him. And he said, "You better come in." And I told him everything that had happened. But I think we was talking for about 2.5 hours. He told me about Jesus, how Jesus is the King, and the earth has been separated from him, and all that sort of stuff. And I understood it, and I knew it was right. I knew he was telling the truth. I just knew, for some reason, I knew. And he said to me at the end of the conversation, "Do you want to become a Christian?" I said, "Yeah, I do." And I meant it. And he's prayed for me there and then. And poof, I just felt this sense of peace, of love. It's just powerful. I've never felt anything like it in my life. And he gave me the book of Luke. He said, "Come and see me Friday." He said, "We'll have another chat." I went and see him on the Friday. And all through the week I was reading the book of Luke. I'm reading it, and before I'd opened the Bible, where I'd stayed in hotel rooms before, I'd open the Bible, I'd read something, and think, what's that talking about? But this time I kind of had an understanding, and I want to read more and know more. And it was peaceful for around about 3.5 weeks. And then I come and see him on the Friday. Then he said, "Why don't you come to church on the Sunday?" So I come to church on the Sunday, which coming to church was, for the first time, me and Lorna we were terrified. It was a daunting experience. Coming to church, coming to church for a wedding is totally different to coming to church to worship God, with real Christians. But, praise the Lord. First person I see was Roy. David had told him that this family's coming Sunday at the men's breakfast on the Saturday. He turned up at the front door and all that. They were like, "Wow, God, this new family." I know what that's like now as a Christian. When you hear a new family's coming, you're like, "Yes, come on." We're all uplifted, aren't we? And we just go, "Praise the Lord." So I've come through the door, and they're like, "How welcome," and all this. And I said to Roy, "I remember you come round to do our baptism talk." He used to do the baptism talks to the old vicar out Norman Warren, who's very well known for the Journey to Life book. And he used to be the vicar at this church. He graciously said, "Oh, right, yeah, I remember." I don't think he did, because he used to do loads of them. That didn't matter. He was overjoyed. He hugged us, and people welcoming us. People were just so nice. It was just such an overwhelming experience. But also tough, because you don't know people. So you have to build these relationships and things. The welcome is so important, and that's why we have a welcome team, because your first impression of a church, you should be welcomed in. People should want to talk to you, make sure you're okay, find you a seat, make sure you're all right. And everyone done that to us, and David and Claire are really good at continuing that. This church apparently has always been like that. They've got old boys like Derek, who's been here for 30, 40 years, whatever. Roy, since 1976, I think, he started coming here, and you've got some wonderful people here. He's 90 soon. He's a fantastic bloke. We've become really close because, when he come, Lorna said, and he'd done a little gospel talk, she said to me, "What do you think?" I said, "I think he's a lovely bloke." I said, "People talking a load of crap." I said, "But listen, we'll have the Christian at the church. That's what you want. That's what we'll do." And now he's like one of my best mates. He's a fantastic guy. Love him a bit. It's funny the way God works.
I guess going on from that, I suppose, tell us about what you think the best thing is about being a Christian.
The best thing about being a Christian is when you know and believe that Jesus died on that cross for you. That can be overwhelming. Because we're asked to be Christ-like, we're asked to be godly. That can be quite daunting to look at that, to be godly, when you know God is so perfect, so holy. It just comes to me the other day, and I don't know if it's the Holy Spirit or what, and I was just thinking of this Oxford thing that's coming up that I'm doing. I was just breaking godly down as what I try to be. I try to be grateful, I try to be obedient, I try to be disciplined, I try to be loving, and I always try to say yes. And I think that's really important. If you try and live by them things and the Word of God, being a Christian is a wonderful thing, because here is kind of a war going on, and we're amongst it. So the devil is not attacking people who already is. He's attacking us. With me as a Christian, and like I said to you, the first 3.5 weeks was great. Then I relapsed after 3.5 weeks, and that went on for 2 years and 8 months. And whenever I relapsed, opened the door back up for the demonic stuff to start. So that was a continual battle as well. Yeah, that got worse and worse. All lights flashing. I started seeing a lot more, being scratched, strangled, attacked in bed. physical attacks, and they got worse and worse and worse. Plus my family was seeing them all. But the good thing was, whenever I called on the name of Jesus, it would stop. I could tell you a thousand things about this demonic stuff. There's stuff that I've never spoken about, and I never will speak about because it is just so bad. I will never talk about it. I'll tell you 2 occasions where Jesus done amazing things and that I see with my own eyes. Now, there was one time when addiction was going quite badly, and I was still fighting it. It was tough, and it was averaging around 2.5, 3 weeks, and then I'd relapse, then I'd feel guilty again, give me the strength to fight again, relapse again, and this went on for 2 years, 8 months. But at one point, the lights were flickering, every single light in the house was flickering, and this went on for 6 weeks. But Lorna was now noticing it more, and it was starting to scare her, and it was starting to scare Bo. And I remember coming in from work, it was in the winter time, about 5, half 5 at night, and Lorna and Bo were at her mum's, and as soon as I'd come in, turned the light on because it was pitch black, turned the whole light on, bomb started flickering, turned the whole front room light on flickering, kitchen light flickering, done himself a cup of coffee, sat down, everything's flickering and going wild, and I mean every light in the house, lamps, every single light, and I just remember thinking, oh, I've got to do something about this, and you know, I just got on my knees and prayed this really intense prayer, I said, Lord, the girls are getting scared. I said, I can kind of take it. I said, but, you know, this is scaring them now, Lord. And I just prayed it. It's a really, really deep and meaningful prayer. I had the Bible in my hand. I was on my knees, pleading to God to make it stop. And I got up, sat in the chair, and the lights went flickered one more time, and they never flickered again after that day. But I had other attacks. And now one of the other attacks was on a Saturday morning. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. Lorna was out shopping. This is the only time where I felt my life was in danger. And it was a Saturday morning, about 10:30 in the morning. Nice and bright, the light. I just woke up and I was just laying there. I knew Lorna had gone out with Bo. I think they'd gone shopping together. And then this smell came, like the worst smell you can imagine. Now, I've smelled some bad things with these demons before, but this was different. And then I looked and this massive demon appeared. You're talking like 10 foot tall and about 5 or 6 foot wide. Huge thing. And it was the blackest black you can think of. So you can't see no features, but you can see the outline. So there's 2 arms and 2 legs, but not arms like we've got. It was more like one was a claw and one was like a lobster claw. That's how I can explain it. And the head was huge and it was hunched over my ceiling. So, because it was so tall, so it had to hunch over, and it was moving towards me, but really slowly. It was all like really slow motion. And then it knelt on the bed, and I'm just staring at this thing in complete and utter disbelief, right? And I'm a Christian at the time. I'm probably about a year in as a Christian, and the whole bed just tipped to one side. I was just sort of frozen in fear, I suppose. And then it's coming towards me and I'm feeling it. And all of a sudden I just prayed, Lord Jesus, please help me. Lord, done the prayer. All of a sudden this light just come upon this thing, hit it in the stomach. And the only way I can explain it is like, you know, you get these rough crystals that haven't been polished and whatever. But it was like the brightest light you could imagine was emanating out of it. So you could see prisms of light as well. And it was so bright I couldn't make any detail out apart from, that's the only way I can explain it. And it was pushing this thing back. And this thing's still trying to come towards me. And this light is just pushing it. And this went on for a few minutes and then done. It smelled nice again and everything was gone. I was just laying there like in just absolute, disbelief, but also realising the power of Jesus' name. Although that was a terrible thing to go through and put my family through, because it was my fault, nobody else's, it was mine, because I was messing with it. So that's the tough part. And so there is a journey. So, and the reason I'm telling people this part before I get to the good part is because it ain't all roses. It ain't all downhill once you give your life to Jesus. Firstly, you're aware of sin in the world. And when your eyes are open to sin, everywhere you look, you can see evil and you can see sin. And that is a weight on your shoulders alone. But the good thing about being a Christian is that, life to us is not a wall, it's a door. So with Jesus, when we leave this life, we're going into the next. The other thing is as well, the best thing about being a Christian is that Jesus will get you to the best you can be in this life. So I can get to a certain level. I'll never get to your level. You're a vicar and a man of God. And I'm a Christian the same as you. but there's different levels because God's using us for different things. But He's got me to the best version I can be. So I'm a better dad, I'm a better husband, I'm a better friend, I'm a better person. Because I like to say yes, I'm obedient to God. So I've got all these wonderful things. And I do have bad times still, because obviously there's mental issues from my past life and all the stuff I've seen and all the things I've done. There's guilt from that, I felt. And I felt the weight of that during my journey. But the journey is part of it. When you're in your darkest moments, all you have to do is look to Jesus and know one day you will be with Him in heaven, with all your brothers and sisters. This life here becomes more important in the way that we're not called to be quiet, we're called to tell others about Jesus. And with that comes some negative stuff.
Just tell us in your own words, I suppose, for you, kind of what are some of the ongoing challenges being a Christian?
Anger sometimes still, because that person is still in me, that person who doesn't want to be mugged off is still in there, and occasionally it says, don't let him talk to you like that. I'm 10 years a Christian next April, so I've matured a lot over the years. I've been through a lot with Jesus, and He's walked with me every step of the way, and He's got me to this place now, and I look back to where I was then. So where am I going to be in another 10 years? Who knows? God knows, and I trust Him. When things go wrong, I always say I trust in God, not in men. So when tough times come, I just put my trust in the Lord, try and soldier forward. But some of the tough times, it's just everyday life, and then relationships. Some relationships you have to let go of because they are just not ready to change. Their hearts are so hardened. And not everyone is in the book. Yeah. There's a book of life. There's certain names in it and there's certain names that are not. And maybe you're not that person to help that friend or that family member. And if they're bringing you down, you've got to let them go. Sometimes that's difficult. That's challenging. And sometimes accepting that people think you're less of a person because you're a Christian. When actually they don't realise that at night you're praying for them. You're praying that one day they will turn to Jesus. Sometimes you can get disillusioned, so that's tough as well. And think, I've been praying so long for this person and they haven't come to Jesus. And, one of the things I didn't say earlier, I found out after being at this church for 6 months, when we got married here in 2003, they'd been praying for us. There's a prayer meeting here every Saturday morning throughout the year. They meet up at 8:30 to 9:30. They used to do it in here, now they do it on Teams because it's easier. Saves everyone coming to the church early on a Saturday morning. And they'd been praying for us for the previous 12 years, once a month, once every couple of months. We was in their prayer list and they would mention us because of Bo being baptised as well. When we heard that, me and all were like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So don't ever lose hope on people. Don't give up. Keep praying for them. And the prayer team has gone down to 4 people. And so me and Lorna said, and we do quite a lot at the church anyway, but we knew this prayer meeting on a Saturday morning is important. So we've joined it now. We joined it last year. So we're now part of the Saturday morning prayer team as well. Yeah. There's 6 or 7 of us, I think, who regularly join. Well, hopefully we'll get more, but we've just thought we've got to keep this going. They've done it for us, and I just felt, the power of prayer. Just because you're leaving people behind, because you've got to, because they can drag you back to the old life. Some people, and if they want to stay there, that's their choice. There is free will. You can't make someone become a Christian. You can't make someone change. Only God can do that. So you got to put your trust and faith in Him. And sometimes you have got to leave people and just walk away. And I've done that, and people have done that to me as well, because I'm different. I'm not the old Jason that they used to love, who was loud and could have a row and had a few quid around him. I live a life I try and live a life for God. I try to, every day, live better than the day before. It's like, every time we get up, we aim not to sin. By 8:15, we've probably 10 sins already. It's tough. It's a tough journey, but it's wonderful. I mean, I'm trying to live a holy life. I'm trying to live a godly life. Sometimes it being tough is good for me because I still enjoy the fight. Sometimes it's that toughness. There's a lot of things that Christians are being put down for now, but that'll make me talk about God even more. And if they wanted to put me in prison for the rest of my days for talking about Jesus or preaching the gospel or whatever it was, I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to lose everything for God. And that's not for selfish reasons. That's because I love my fellow human being, because God called us to love everybody. Called to love, we're called to change.
No, that's great. So you're now part of St Lawrence in Morden. You've said a bit already, which is great. You and Lorna are part of the prayer team.
Yep.
How else are you involved here?
Right, so I'm district warden, so I'm in charge of all the buildings and the grounds. I'm in my 6th year. You're supposed to do 5, but no one else will stand up, so I'm doing another year. So I look after all the grounds, the maintenance of the building. Lucky enough, I've got a building firm, so I'm able to help out a lot with building things. I'm also a DCC member, PCC member. I lead services with David. I don't preach, I'm not a preacher. I'm able to lead services, which helps David, and there's about 3 or 4 others who do that as well. I'm part of a growth group where we meet once a week. What else am I involved in? There's not a lot I'm not involved in, to be honest with you. So yeah, my life's very busy with work and church, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, look what Jesus has done for me. When you look to the cross, him up there, there's no comparison. I'm on the prayer team as well, so I do prayers, intercession prayers. I'm on the prayer rota for that as well. Yeah, I'm heavily involved, but that's how I want it. I'm glad God's given me a serving heart. I did watch a preacher recently who said there's no such thing as a 90-minute Christian. So don't think you can go to church for an hour and a half and you're a Christian. You have to live it out. Yeah. It's a life-changing thing. It's, come as you are, but don't stay as you are. You're called to change. I remember me changing and getting softer and more compassionate, because I've never been a compassionate person. I'm always like, get up, get on with it, And I remember watching a film once with Lorna, and it was quite a sad film, and a tear rolled out my eye. I've never cried in my life, do you know what I mean? Because I refused to cry, that was my thing. Even as a kid, when they beat me, I wouldn't cry, you know what I mean? And this tear rolled, I got all choked up, and this tear rolled down my face. I thought, what's happening to me? Yeah. It was a really weird experience, and I'm like that a lot now. I get emotional. I feel people's pain, and that's one of the biggest changes I've noticed. I feel people's pain, and I care about people. I really do, and that ain't me doing that. That's the Holy Spirit. That's God at work in me. I don't claim any of this. It's God's good work in me, and I just try to be a better person. And like I said to you earlier, progress, not perfection. Perfection is what we're aiming for, but we will never get there on this world. We know that. We understand that because of the grace of God, His great mercy. One day, we can keep going. Every time we fall down, we can get up. Say, Lord, I'm sorry. I repent, and He forgives us every time. Every time.
Good stuff. I mean, your story, Jason, is amazing. But just tell us about how Christians be supporting ex-prisoners, ex-offenders.
The last one I done was Coldingley. And when I was speaking to the people after, I told them where my church is and said to them, the first thing you want to do when you get out of prison is find a Bible-believing church with good Christians. They've got to be Bible-believing. That seems a funny thing to say for Christians, but there is such a thing as Christians who think they're Christians and don't believe the Bible is the Word of God. And I think you need a church that has the Bible as the Word of God. It's got to be its foundation. And that's what I tell every prisoner that I speak to. I said, so firstly do that. You'll know when they're a good church because they'll be welcoming, they'll help you out, they'll be sincere, they'll be preaching the Word of God. Anyone can read, so you can see if it's right or not. And they're the things I say. And the thing is, if they do come to your church, then give them the support that they need. So I've told a few lads in Coldingley who were from Streatham and Croydon, a year or two, hopefully, if they do nothing wrong, from getting out. I said, listen, when you come out, I said, come and visit me at the church. I told them what church I go to. I said, come and see me. And I said, just keep reading the Bible, keep praying, and keep trusting in God. When you mess up, God does forgive again and again, but you've got to try and fight hard and try and do the right thing. You can't just leave it all to Jesus. You're expected to fight yourself as well. It's not like, yeah, Jesus, you do it all. You saved me, that's it, I'm done. Yeah. They need support and they need help, and as Christians we need to be there for them, be welcoming, and give them support. That's all I've done, is just invite people to my church that have who I speak to, and hopefully they spread the word round and tell them the importance of getting in a church. You come out of prison, one of the first things you want to do is go and find a good church if you're a serious Christian, because you're going to need that help and support, when you come out.
Right, we're coming towards the end now. We do this with all our guests. Yeah. Just share a favourite Bible verse you have, or maybe even just something from the Bible that's been encouraging you recently.
My favourite book in the New Testament is Luke, because that's the first one I ever read. That's always close to my heart. And the way he says at the beginning, how closely he's looked into everything and the evidence that he's looked for. It's so clear at the start of Luke, and then you read it, and it's quite an easy book to read. I'm a very well-educated man, believe me. But Psalm 51 is my one. The reason is, I was talking to David about the struggles of the addiction, although I didn't tell him I was relapsing, and he showed me Psalm 51. That is the one, whenever I relapsed, was the one I always used to go to, was Lord, cleanse me from my sin. It was just everything I felt, and just that assurance that God will forgive me, although I've let him down again. Was it King David who wrote that psalm? Because he'd let God down, didn't he, when he went into the wilderness for a little while, went out, didn't he, for a bit and then come back. And that's how I felt every time I relapsed. I felt I'd gone away from God, but that verse would always bring me back to him. Not that verse, that whole chapter would bring me straight back to him in the assurance that he's got me. So if I say my favourite chapter in the whole Bible is Psalm 51, but my favourite book is Luke, because it's the first one I ever read. But I started reading the Bible from front to back, because I watch a lot of these, he's called Bob on YouTube, on Speaker's Corner, and he debates with Muslims. And I love watching it, because I learn a lot about my own faith as well, watching it, Yeah. And, so the Muslims kept saying, no, not all Christians have read the Bible all the way through. And I found out not all the Christians have. So I thought, from that day, right, I'm going to set out and I'm going to read the Bible front to back. And I'm on Thessalonians now, so it's took me over 2.5 years so far. So I read generally half a chapter or a chapter a night and then pray on it. And so it's took me 2.5 years so far. I'm getting near the end. I think I've got 5 books left, and some of them are quite small, and then Revelation at the end. So I'm near the end. It's been great to do it, and I'd recommend any Christian to do it, because I do believe that as Christians we should have read the whole of the Bible, not just bits here and there that we want. When you have to go through Leviticus and all that, some of them I'm reading them thinking, oh my days, what is going on here? I don't mean they're hard work, aren't they? Them books to read, to be honest with you. But I soldiered through, I didn't really understand it fully. But once I finish, I'm going to start again. Yeah. But I also do Bible study, at home as well. So we read all bits of the Bible, but once I've read front to back, I'm going to then start again. And I'm going to study books like Genesis. I want to study some more, really deeply. And then there's a few others as well. Exodus in the Old Testament. The Bible is our foundation, isn't it? It's what God has left us. What else do we have apart from the Bible? That knowledge that God has given us. I've had times when I've come into church, especially in the early days, where the preacher would be preaching on a certain verse, and it was as though God was talking directly to me. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. I remember my mate who I was just talking about earlier, who just come to Christ. He said, was David actually talking to me? I said, did it feel like it? He goes, everything he said was it's like, what's happened to me this week? And I said, that's got to work in you. It's just the way God works sometimes, and it's a powerful thing. I don't know if you've ever had it?
Yeah, I have.
It's amazing when it happens, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. Reminds me of a verse, the sword of the Spirit is the word, and that's kind of what's going on, I think, what you're describing. The sword kind of penetrating. Yeah. Let's just finish then. I'd love to know, Jason, how we can be praying for you.
Pray for more opportunities to go out and with this book. This book has been a blessing from God. I don't know how well it's doing. I think it's doing all right. Friends of mine were down Bible at the beach, and it was on sale down there, and they were talking about it on the stage and things, and people were buying it, so it seems to be going well. Claire said, from what she heard last time, she hasn't asked recently, but it's doing well. I know someone sent me a thing, it was sold out in Australia. Now, I don't know how many copies they had in Australia. It might have only been 5, or it could have been 500, I don't know. But that was good to hear. Cousins of mine in America bought it, and one of my cousins goes to church, so he's told people about it, so hopefully it's growing over there. Yeah, so pray that people who read the book will turn to Jesus, or at least start asking questions of what life's really about. Because I've tried my old life for the meaning of life, and it's such a journey. I mean, it's like the best roller coaster in the world, but it's terrifying at times. But there's times when there's such good highs. But that's just the way it is. But the ride does come to an end. When it comes to an end is when you'll really get the benefits of all that labour and toil that we go for as Christians, every day. So pray for strength and courage, for wisdom. So when I talk, I talk with charisma. People will hear what I'm saying, and it's God talking through me. That's what I always pray for myself before I go and do talks, is that God will talk through me. And courage, because I'm not a natural speaker. This is not something I do. This is just something I've been thrust into. And because of the book, I've been getting all these opportunities, and I'm learning every one I do. I'm getting a little bit better at. I felt certainly more confident. So just pray for more opportunities in prisons, more opportunities in churches, and just that the book will change people's lives. It will get them asking questions about what happens after death. Like Roy said to me, sadly his son died recently, Roy, he's 90, and his son died at 60. And I went round to see him on the Wednesday at St. Matt Fish and Chips. And you know what? He just lost his son a week and a half ago, and I walked in there. And I said, "You're all right, Roy?" He goes, I'm just finishing my, is it eulogy? For my son, Jason. He said, "I've just finished." And he said, when people die, he says, the best opportunity to preach the gospel to them. He's in the most grief he's ever been in. Lost his son at 60 years old. Right? Was found 4 days later after he died, with his Chelsea top on, about to go to football, and he had a massive heart attack and fell just before the front door. In all that grief, he wasn't thinking of himself. He was thinking of family and friends who are there who are not saved, and twisting that death of his son to praise God, to praise Jesus Christ. And it just humbled me so much. I just thought, bloody hell, Roy, you're a wonderful man, a wonderful godly man. It was just so powerful.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jason.
You've been listening to an interview with Jason Armstrong. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard and you'd like to leave a message, please go to the website daylightcpt.org. That's daylight.cpt.org. And if you click on the tab Contact Us at the top of the website, you'll be able to scroll down and leave a message there. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. I hope you can join us then.